Since we're going to be talking about bad decisions, the first thing we need to do is to define clearly what we mean by a bad decision. A decision is bad when it does two things simultaneously. It hurts the interest of the owners of the firm, and an outside observer could predict it would hurt the owners. There's a couple of ways to predict that the decision would hurt the owners. You can tell from history. Perhaps the bad mistake has occurred before and is repeated over and over. Second way is to judge it by the information possessed by all employees inside the firm. There might not be one person who has the information that would indicate the decision is bad, but if you combine all the information within the firm, then the firm has enough information to make a good decision. The book gives a good example of a bad decision: overbidding on the OVI gas track. A young geologist prepared a bid recommendation for an oil track in the Gulf of Mexico. With knowledge of the productivity of neighboring tracks also owned by the company, the geologist recommended a bid of $5 million. Senior management, however, bid $20 million, far over the next highest bid of only $750,000. But after a dry well was drilled, the reserve estimates were decreased. Senior management stepped in and ordered an increase in the reserve estimate above what they were originally. This example contains at least two bad decisions. People within the firm knew that $20 million was too high and that the reserves estimates were overstated. The excess bid reduced the firm's profit, and the overstated reserves reduced the ability of the owners to direct the firm to desirable outcomes. When judging whether a decision is good or bad, remember that hindsight is perfect, but foresight is not. A bad outcome is not sufficient to determine whether or not a decision was bad. A decision that the owners of the firm regret now may have been a good bet at the time someone made the decision. The decision is bad when the people within the firm had information that the expected value of the decision was insufficient to compensate the owners for the risk. So the real question with uncertainty, when an outcome is uncertain, the real question is, was the bet good? Now, the rational actor paradigm is the premise that people make decisions based on what they think is best for themselves, given the information they have when they make the decision. If you know the decision rights within the firm, the information that the deciders have, and their incentives, you can pretty well predict the decision that will occur within the firm. Now, some points. The nature of decision rights varies. Decision rights can be clear or vague. They can be given to an individual or to a group. They might follow an organizational chart or really reside with unofficial influencers. Information is not the same as data. To be information, the data must be accessible, understandable, and credible. This means that memos, statements, charts, tables, PowerPoint decks, presentations, and spreadsheets may not be information. Data becomes information only after the reader sees how it is useful to make a decision. Something filed away in a cabinet or on the cloud is not information. Incentives can come in a variety of forms. They can be intrinsic or they can be external. They can be monetary or non-monetary. They can be reward for success or punishment for failure. Now, to use the rational actor paradigm to identify why bad decisions occur, an analyst should ask three questions. Number one, who is making the decisions? Who has the decision rights? Number two, what information does the decider have? And finally, what incentives does the decider face? The answers to these questions will usually reveal why the bad decision occurs. Two forces are the usual suspects. The person making the decision has bad information, or the person making the decision has an incentive to make a bad decision. Once you've identified the answer to those three questions, some combination of three solutions to improve the decisions will emerge. One thing you can do is move the decision rights to someone with better information or better incentives. Perhaps the thing you need to do is to improve the information flow to the decider to get better decisions. Or you can alter or improve the incentives to the decider. A well-designed organization is one in which deciders have enough information to make good decisions and the incentive to do so. A final point is that when seeking a solution, remember that the problem does not exist if the cost of the solution is greater than the cost of the problem. In other words, don't fix a problem if the cure is worse than the disease. Simple example, you'll probably never stop people from goofing off a little bit, at least a little bit on their computer, playing solitaire or something like that. Well, the cost of monitoring and policing all the behavior of everybody on every computer is probably higher than the cost of an occasional solitary game. So don't try to eliminate all solitary games, is my presumption. But on the other hand, well, don't try to eliminate all solitary games, because that last game you eliminate, the cost of eliminating the last game is probably higher than the benefit you'd receive from it.